Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast. And my enthusiasm is genuine this weekend because it doesn't get much better. We've got loads of racing to get through. I think there were 16 in total on the agenda. We don't have a bet for you in every race, but between us, we've looked at all of them. Between ITV Racing on Saturday, which of course involves a Grade 1, but then the Dublin Racing Festival taking centre stage with 8 Grade 1s across the weekend. And we don't have decks for the Sunday yet, but we do for Saturday. We've still got a good idea of what's likely to go on the Sunday as well. So plenty of bets in there for you. If you're heading to Leopardstown this weekend, have a great time. It's going to be fantastic racing. I'm looking forward to taking it all in from the safety of the studio at Racing TV Saturday and Sunday. We've got a great team of maths for you. Matt Toombs, Dan Overall, and Donn McClean. And before I bring them in, I'm just going to remind you of the usual: to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you're listening and wherever you're watching. It's the best no-cost way of supporting our content across all of the podcasts. So please do it if you like it. We're currently on 5.9 thousand YouTube subscribers. So we want to get up to 6,000 because, it's a nice round number. So let's get there. So if you don't currently subscribe on YouTube, then click the button. It's easy. It's just a button to click. So please do it. We want to get up to 6,000. Ideally very soon, please. And episode 4 of the Cheltenham Trail with Matt Toombs and Donn McClean, who join us today, is out now. So please take that in. Again, you can get there on YouTube or via any of our, or go to Twitter. Any of those links you can find in there. So that's episode 4 of the Cheltenham Trail with Matt Toombs and Donn McClean. And it's Matt Toombs who I'm going to bring in first of all. Hello, Matt, to talk about the 1:15 at Leopardstown, now firmly in its place as a 2-mile 6 Grade 1 novices hurdle. Before your selection, again, Matt's picked out some underbet trends for us to highlight. What have we got, Matt?
Hi, Tom. Yeah, the trends are 2 linked things. Unbeaten hurdlers are 0 from 9. Horses running off just 1 hurdle start 0 from 7. This is a tough race. A big ask for horses that have arrived off just a maiden hurdle win, especially when that was also their debut under rules. In addition, regular viewers probably remember me talking every year before DRF about Willie Mullins not knowing his pecking order going into the meeting, especially in the novice and juvenile hurdles. The basic rule is that at DRF, the value's with the second strings, unless Willie has an established superstar. And then Cheltenham, the value is with the first strings at short and intermediate trips. Willie knows his pecking order by then. And I think this race could be a classic example of that. Final Demand's a short price favourite. Looked a cracking prospect to Limerick, bolting up there. Placed horses have won since, but this is a very different ball game. It'll have to be a top-notcher to win this off a point and a hurdles run against much more battle-hardened opponents. And that's especially the case as he looked, understandably, just the second run of his life, quite green at the business end at Limerick, lugging right. Perhaps he is a superstar, raw ability will get him home, but at the prices, I much prefer Super Sunday, about 6.0. Not often you see a 6-year-old 4th season novice lining up in this, but he had a couple of runs a year apart in France. On his stable debut for Willie, he was pitched into the Supreme, ran well, beaten just over 10 lengths. On his seasonal reappearance earlier this month, ran in the 2-mile 4 Grade 1 at Naas. He's heavily backed into 7.0, far too keen, but stayed on well to be 8 lengths second to the yellow clay. He'll need that to have knocked the freshness out of him if he's going to be effective at this trip. On breeding, he should stay. His half-brother, the differently spelt Super Sunday, just about stayed 3 mile with the emphasis on speed, 2 lengths second in the stayers. Another half-brother, 2021, twice over 3 miles plus over fences. So ideally, you play him in running on the Matchbook Exchange if Patrick could get him settled. 12-runner field should help. But at the prices, very happy to be taking a chance and tipping him at around 6.0.
And Dan, you agree, sir?
I do, yeah. I think that price is really generous. I say around the 6.0 when you compare it to Final Demand. Not really all that much to add on the argument, other than I think it's interesting the hood goes on for the first time. And I think Manella Kakuna won this a couple of years ago with a first-time hood, and the tongue tie that he wore in his 2 starts in France goes back on. Hopefully that, in conjunction with the run behind him in the Lords of Naas, that kind of knocks the freshness out of him. If it does, I think realistically on what he's actually achieved, he sets the standard. And I am surprised Final Demand is as short as he is. As I say, for as much as he looked promising, I echo Matt's sentiments entirely that this would be a really impressive performance if he could come and win this on just his second start under rules.
Donn, who do you like?
Yeah, I'm a Muzzy Sister fan, Tom. Interesting stat of Matt's there about the experience that you need for this race. And that stacks up with the type of race that it is. It's 2 miles 6. It used to be 2.5 miles. It used to be that the Deloitte hurdle was 2 miles 2. And this race was 2 miles 4. So there wasn't that much of a difference between the two distances. It's good now. It's 2 miles and 2 miles 6 since the advent of the Dublin Racing Festival. And yeah, like Final Demand was good, his time was good, but he's going to have to prove that he can do it in this grade. Super Sunday, don't disagree with a lot of what the lads were saying about him. He was really well back from big prices the last day in the Lawless next race that the Yellow Clay won. But I just think Muzzie's sister, there's more to come from her. She was a good bumper mare last season, and actually in the early part of this season, she split Familiar Dreams and Aurora Vega in the Grade 3 bumper at the Mare's Bumper at the Punchestown Festival. And she had 3 runs over hurdles so far this season. She won over at Galway. She wasn't overly impressive. She was an odds-on shot that day, but it was over 2 miles. She stepped up to 2.5 then next time in that Lawlers, or in the Toten Navan Novice Hurdle. And they didn't go a great pace in that race. The Yellow Clay did well to win it, but she was ridden even further back than the Yellow Clay was, and she stayed on to finish third. She was only beaten just over 5 lengths by the Yellow Clay. She actually got closer to him than Super Sunday did in the Lawlers race. And then she went to Limerick last time, and she finished second behind the Big Westerner, which on the face of it was a bit disappointing. But actually, the Big Westerner, she's been highly touted for the Albert Bartlett Hurdle. And Muzzie's sister, she just didn't jump well that day. She seemed to get in tight to most of her hurdles. She just seemed to lose momentum at key points in the race. And I thought she did well to stay on as well as she did to take second place behind her. She's a half-sister to Aquinas, who won over 3 miles, so the stamina test will be right up her street. And the Declan Creeley horses, they're in really good form. He had a really good day on Thursday's Chase Day at Corran Park. 2 winners there, including Rocky's Time, and 3 of his last 4 runners have won. He's operating at a strike rate of 20% since early November. And I think the faster pace that they should go in this race, that should suit Muzzie's sister. Her last 2 runs have been in races that weren't run at a fast pace. So I just thought she was a wee bit underpriced for a yard or overpriced for a yard that's in good form.
We're all looking down the betting. I have gone with Jasmine DeVoe with cheek pieces on. I didn't write what some knob has written, praying for low sun issues. I didn't write that.
I thought that was legit. It's your only chance.
No, I didn't write that. I can imagine that may well have been our intrepid and hilarious producer, Dan Hussey. And he's obviously
pricing it up, Tom. You're pricing that market up of the 4 of us. How are you pricing that up? Who wrote that?
Actually, I might make you, Fav.
No,
You're looking a bit cheeky. Yes, that smile says it all. Thanks, Matt. You saying he can't jump? I mean, he can't jump. He jumped like I don't know what the best comparison is that I've heard. Ironing board, snooker table, whatever. But as we all know, jumping isn't the name of the game. Simple.
Just on that, Tom, on the low sun issue, 2019 was the last time there were hurdles taken out of this race with the low sun. And if they do take him out, it's only the last flight. It's 2 flights on the round because you jump it twice, but it's not like you're taking out 4 flights down the back straight. It's only the last flight that you're taking out. So it's not as big as it is in other.
Would you like to reverse your decision, Tom?
Just to say, I'm not basing this bet on hoping there's low sun issues. That's just Matt Toons being mischievous. Dan Hussey has written jumps like a bag of hammers. Quite like that one as well. I just went as I got down the field. For I think the reasons you've all suggested. I don't want to be with Final Demand. Just we know Jasmine DeVoe's got the class. I'm obviously hoping the cheek pieces go on. I wouldn't mind seeing them give him that champion bumper ride. Just take him back. But I'm willing to take a chance on him ability wise to just cause a bit of a surprise. He just looked a big price for a champion bumper winner who I thought was pretty good on his debut. For all he wasn't fluent. Obviously, last time it fell apart a bit. JJ Slevin takes over. I'm not saying that's a positive, but it's something different. And the cheek pieces go on. I'll just try him again. I think we know he's very good. So I thought he was a pretty solid win and play shout in a 12 runner field. There we are. And if it's low sun, happy days. We move on from the 115 at Leopardstown. This is the 150. Nothing for me here. I thought this was tough. I'm interested in the guys that are with Hello Neighbour. Donn, first of all, please.
Yeah, look, I just thought Tom. I was a fan of his on the flat. He did an awful lot wrong the last time from what we could see in the Grade 2 race over Christmas. He only ran twice on the flat. He got a rating of 97 after just 2 runs on the flat, and one of them was over 10.5 furlongs, which would have been shorter than ideal for him at Roscommon. And just that's a high rating to bring into the juvenile hurdling scene. And it was interesting that Gavin Cromwell ran him in the Grade 2 race over Christmas instead of in the maiden hurdle, which he could have run in. And the hurdles that we saw, he really didn't jump well. He was keen. He got in tight to a lot of his hurdles, and I just thought he was nearly caught by Lady Vega Allen in the end. But I thought he did well to being in front from a little way out to keep on and just hold off her challenge. He's going to have to do better than that if he's going to win this. You'd imagine like St. Lucie is a big challenger, and Lady Vega Allen is in there again. They're big dangers. St. Lucie was good the last day, and her first run for Willie Mullins. But Hello Neighbour, just if he can jump a wee bit better than he did the last day, I think there's lots more to come from him. It's interesting that Gavin Cromwell is fitting a hood as well on Saturday for the first time. So I think he can come forward from his last run. He's a horse who's obviously been highly regarded by Gavin Cromwell and his connections for a little while, and I think he's a big player in the juvenile hurdling scene. And yeah, I think he can hopefully jump a wee bit better than he did the last day, and that could see him home.
Dan, sorry to bring you in second again on a joint tip.
No, it's fine. You just want to hear less of me. That's the first time I've been on the pod this month, and yeah, putting me right to the back of the queue. But look, there's not all that much to add, to be honest. I think at the minute, my strategy seemingly is backing anything with Hood first time, which I haven't run the numbers on, but I know that would not be profitable. But I agree with Donn. I just think there's a lot of improvement to come with him. Like, I think he didn't really get the credit he deserved, probably because we didn't really see any of the race he won over Christmas. But I thought in the circumstances, he did extremely well. Obviously, he got to the front far too soon, and Lady Vega Allen, in my mind, was probably a bit flattered to get as close as she did. And arguably, in 50 more yards, she would have been in front. But I think, bearing in mind what Hello Neighbour did throughout the race, I think there's significant improvement to come. And a lot of it, I think, was based on the idea that St. Lucie is seemingly the one quite widely fancied, but a lot of momentum behind her. And I just find her quite hard to assess. I think before the race, they probably weren't expecting all that much. After the race, seemingly, she's the second coming. I'm just not sure where she stands. And I thought for Hello Neighbour to go hurdling debut first time out in a Grade 2, do so much wrong, and yet still win, I thought that was impressive. And the way the market's going, I thought he was kind of drifting out to quite an attractive price.
Matt, with your trend?
Yeah, so one of the golden rules about betting on juvenile hurdles is that, as you might expect given their age, they're often improving a lot during the season, often at different stages of the season. And in Ireland, the same juveniles often take each other on from Christmas onwards. The results differ much more than even in the novice hurdle divisions. So the trend is that winners of the Grade 2 juvenile at Leopardstown, the O'Driscolls, won by Hello Neighbour at Christmas, 1 from 10 since it became a Grade 1, whereas the placed horses that were beaten at Christmas, 5 from 16, 172% profit. Now, 37 days isn't much in the career of a Galopin de Champs, but it is often with these juveniles. This year's not straightforward. The first 3 home at Christmas in the O'Driscolls all run here, and they all look real works in progress there. So, from what you could see in the fog, not easy to know which are going to come on and by how much. Sunny Bill was beaten 7 lengths there. Probably keenest of all, Simon Torrance tried to settle him in front, and it didn't work. His early exertions took their toll, and he faded in the closing stages. That was his first run for 201 days. Hopefully that will have taken the freshness out of him. I imagine he'll be ridden with more cover here. Danny Mullins, great jockey booking for him. Bit of a guessing game, re how much each of them are going to improve. So I'm keen to be with one at a price. Sunny Bill's 15.0. I'm hopeful he's another who can turn that Christmas form around in this race.
Okay, there's 3 selections for the juvenile. We move on to the Irish Arkle. That's the 255. I'll kick off here if I can, because I'm the only one that's against Majborough. Now, it's not like I'm out, and I don't make the horse a lay by any stretch, Majborough. I just feel the price about L'Atlantique at 4.5 is quite generous based on what he's achieved over fences. Now, obviously, you know, that Majborough success at Cheltenham was electric. It was, you know, and he's subsequently come out and beaten Tully Hill and an Asian Master and the like, form that incidentally hasn't worked out very well. I sort of am of the opinion now that Tully Hill was turned into a bit of a hype horse last season. He's not really the horse that we all thought he was. Anyway, that's not to take away from Majborough's performance over fences, but I've been really impressed with what L'Atlantique's done, and I think he's achieved more over fences in that success 5-length defeat of Firefox last time than Majborough did. Just looking at the market, how it shapes up, I thought L'Atlantique was a big price. I used to think he was quite soft. I'm not sure now. I mean, I was been pretty taken with him both times he's run. he's a good jumper, and I like a good jumper. So I'm really happy to have him on side. I wouldn't be surprised if Majra went and scored, of course not. But at the prices, I just thought Lonteet was, I don't know, a bit disrespected, and Majra is priced up, not solely on what he did last time, but on his reputation as well. Matt, I'll bring you in if I can here. You have put Majra 1.67. Do you make him a bet?
Definitely. Yeah, I think 1.67 is big. The trend's the only thing you could go against him for. In the last 19 renewals, horses would have one chase starter, one from 14. But part of that, I suspect, is just the world's moved on, and Willie Mullins dominating this meeting and is not bringing his horses out to run more than once as novices before here. He's from that vintage crop of last season's juveniles. I can't ever remember a season where the previous cohort of juveniles has done so well in the big races. From the Galway Hurdle, Greatwood Fighting Fifth, Galmoy. Definitely be having the 5-year-olds in the forefront of your mind for festival handicaps when the entries are out next month. The best two of them are chasing. Majra jumps like a 2-miler. He was a bit out to his left at Fairy House. He wasn't the Triumph, so you'd hope he'd improve for going this way round. But what impressed me was what happened on the run-in. You really ran away from Tully Hill and Asian Master. Tully Hill was almost upsides at the last. Majra accelerated from 33 to 36 miles an hour on the run-in, then eased down to win easily. And as Paul Townend said on the road to Cheltenham, it's not like Mark Walsh to go and shoot clear like he did there. I think Majra just took him there. So if you like betting at odds on, he'd be one I'd be lumping into this weekend. If not, then he's a good anchor leg for DRF backers.
Do you want to add anything, Don? You don't have to, because we're going to move on to another short price in Galopan.
Yeah, not really. Matt's covered it all there, Tom. He's just a hugely likeable horse. Willie Mullins said he looked like a Gold Cup horse when he arrived in the yard as a 3-year-old. He's won a Triumph Hurdle, which isn't his game at all. He could be way better over fences than over hurdles. And as Matt said, he jumped a bit to his left at Fairy House. But his jumping was superb apart from that for a debutant. And yeah, I think he's going to take an awful lot of beating.
Now, hang on. How do I pronounce your name? Is it Demid? Apologies, Don. You will know in our comments.
German.
There we are.
German.
I'm getting 2018 Triumph vibes from this crop of juveniles. I thought this was interesting to reflect back on. I suspect the hype train will continue with the 2 English horses taking such a chunk out of the market. You're referencing East India Dock and another one I can't think of. There we are. He suggested yes, the Hendo horse. A reverse forecast in the top 2 in this could be in the offing for March. But then again, Sergino would have won last year. So there you go. And East India Dock will win this year. So who knows? I'm going to move on to... I'm not going to bring you in because you put no bet on the Irish Arkle, Dan. If you would like to say anything about the Irish Gold Cup, please raise your hand. Good.
Gosh.
That's what we like. Strong opinions only.
Yeah, go on. Let's get stuck in. Because I mean, this is... I think it's hard to see Galopin Des Champs beaten realistically. I think regardless of what you throw at him, he's proven Leopardstown is his playground. He's tactically versatile. He can go forward. Obviously, made all last time out for the most part. There are a few more pace angles in this race, but you saw in his first Gold Cup, he can be held off the pace and still win. He's realistically hard to oppose. And the real fascinating thing with this race is what they're going to do with Factor File. Because there's a lot of talk about riding him differently. And I don't think it's all going to be about this race with him. I think this is going to be very much a learning curve as to whether he can promote himself to being a real Gold Cup horse. And the only way I think you do that is to really get him to settle throughout his races and finish it off strongly. If he does that, I think you can go to Cheltenham with a realistic hope that it could bring about, or at least can bridge the gap to Galopin Des Champs. But if he's keen as he was last time out, I think that kind of scuppers all plans, and he pretty much has to go to the Ryanair because he doesn't have a hope of getting home. So while Galopin Des Champs, I can't really see him beaten, the one I'll be keeping a really close eye on is Factor File, how they ride him, how he travels throughout that race, because that will have a massive bearing on the Ryanair anti-post and the Gold Cup anti-post markets.
But nothing in this instance today will beat Galopin Des Champs, seems to be your opinion, and that of the panel, Don.
Yeah, likewise. It's brilliant to have him, Tom. His box office, the reception that he got the last day when he won the Savills Chase was phenomenal. And Paul Townend, he's ridden so many big race winners, but he seems to get a great kick out of this horse. And the crowd respond, even going up to the winning line and then coming back into the winner's enclosure. It's brilliant to see it. It's a rematch between him and Factor File. It's hard to see how Factor File is going to reverse placings with him. It's hard to see how anything else is going to get close to him, really. Hopefully Monty Starr will come forward from his run the last day, his seasonal debut at Tremor when he was behind Embassy Gardens. and he's a horse who should be better with a stronger stamina test. But no, you kind of hope that Galopin Des Champs is going to go and do something similar to what he did in the Savills.
Quick line, please, Matt.
I totally agree with Dan's analysis about Factor File, and I think that's key here. They're looking towards Cheltenham, and therefore that's why Galopin Des Champs is such a certainty.
Moving on to other DRF Saturday bets, just Dan and Donn. Dan, first of all, please. One big old price in there.
Yeah, he is. And the 3 mile handicap, I don't know how they've managed to get Meeting of the Waters actually in the weights here. I think they've managed to scare off like the 10 top weights at entry stage and get him in at 10 stone 2 for Mark 112. And he has potential to be a total recall-esque blip here. But I just thought at the prices, Rushmount was around 51.0. I thought that was really big for a horse who's still really unexposed. Like, you look at some of his novice form last season, it was really solid. He was second to Lecky Watson, very close up. Shannon Royale back in third. He then won his main over 3 miles, beating rivals now rate 120 and 129 and beating them comprehensively. Had excuses thereafter on heavy ground at Fairy House and when he was down in trip. But I thought he shaped better than the bare result in the Pertemps qualifier here over Christmas. He was kind of bang there, 2 out. He was just sneaking into contention, made a bit of an error, and just shaped in the end like a horse in need of the run. Like, he would be one of the lesser exposed types in here. See, that was only his first handicap start. I still think they've always thought this was a horse of some serious ability. He's only got rate 126. So I just thought at 51.0, that had potential to prove lenient in time and was worth taking, despite Meeting of the Waters leaping off the page in terms of his handicap mark. And the other was my mate Mozzie in the 2 mile 1 handicap, obviously 1 of 2 for Gavin Cromwell in the race. Keith Donoghue rides him. I just looked at it and thought, I didn't think it was a great handicap, really. I thought a lot of these are fairly exposed. They've been around a while. And while my mate Mozzie has also been around for a long time, he's still completely unexposed in handicap chases. Obviously, he was one of the anti-post leaders for the Grand Annual last season. They ended up going with the Arkle. Heavy ground didn't really suit him, but he's always looked like a horse where a big field handicap would really play to his strengths. Obviously, we know he's a real strong travelling type. So while he is top weight, and this is his first run for a few months, I just thought he had the class edge here, and he was a reasonable price at the time. But the concern maybe is they're looking back to the Grand Annual this year. But I thought at the prices, he was worth taking a chance on.
Donn?
Yeah, Gavin Cromwell has some really good crop of 2 mile chasers, and it's the other one of this race that I like. Midnight It Is. I didn't think he had a lot of luck in running the last day in the Donn and John Moore Memorial Chase, when he kind of lost his position on the run to the home turn. He was 8th, jumping the second last fence, but he stayed on. He finished 3rd behind the 2 stable companions, actually, to complete a Gavin Cromwell 1, 2, 3. He's only £1 higher now than he was then. The winner, the stable companion, the King of PRS, he got £7. But Midnight It Is, like, he's had plenty of racing, but he's just in a really rich vein of form. He's racing now. It's only 3 weeks since the Donn and Joan Moore chase, but he had a quick turnaround when he won at Fairy House around this time last year, just 2 weeks after he'd run at Naas. So that shouldn't be an issue, and thought a £1 hike was fair enough for him. The extra premium that this race should place on stamina should suit him. He has won over 2 miles and 3 furlongs, and he does jump a wee bit to his left, so going back left-handed, that should suit him too. Connor Sunwatch is taking £5 off Keith Dunn, who wouldn't be able to ride him at 10 stone 11. So that's Connor Sunwatch's big value for his £5 claim. And yeah, I can see my Midnight It Is going well.
All right, ITV racing on Saturday. We start off with the Grade 1 Silly Isles Novices Chase, just the 4. And Matt and Donn going head-to-head with Handstands and Django Bay. Donn, you can make the case, first of all, for the favourite, 2.0.
Yeah, look, he's short enough, Tom, but I think he's very good. He was a really good hurdler. He won the Formby hurdle last season, Grade 1 at Aintree. Now Farron Laurie fell and might have beaten him, but he did go and win. And then he finished second to Katira in the Premier Handicap hurdle at Aintree when he was hampered when Springwell Bay fell at the second last. He did well to finish second on his chasing debut this season. He beat Springwell Bay and he won really well. Springwell Bay came out and won on New Year's Day at Cheltenham off a mark of 145. He's now rated 154. And look, it's a Grade 1 race, but he's progressive. This 2.5 mile trip is ideal for him. He goes well on soft ground as well. I just think he's got plenty in his favour, and yeah, I think he's a worthy favourite.
And Matt is countering that with this.
I am, but I certainly wouldn't have Django Bay as a lay here. I like him. I think he did pretty much everything right, as Donn said, on his chasing debut. Springwell Bay was being prepped for that big handicap he won on New Year's Day, so it wasn't hard ridden at the business end of that race. I like handstands. We all know how well suited front runners who jump well are to Sandown. It is a specialist course. He jumped well here over 3 miles when winning the Isha last month, making much of the running, stayed out the trip pretty well, then dropped back to an extended 2-3 at Foss to the rearranged Towton, well in control when his main rivals departed. Whether he's a fast 3 mile or a strong staying 2.5 mile at the moment, I'm not sure. But given how he jumped here in the Isha, he can be ridden aggressively, put his rivals under pressure, very much at home on testing ground, whilst the chase track rides a fair bit quicker than the hurdles track because they watered the hurdles track for the summer flat racing. The fact that the hurdles races were potentially going to be called off this morning suggests that even the chase track's going to be really testing. So I'm hopeful handstands can make this a real test at the trip, gallop his rivals into submission from the front.
We are sticking with Sandown, so we'll do Sandown in its entirety and then Musselburgh in the any other bets section. 2 mile 4 handicap hurdle at 125. Just you, Dan, please.
Yeah, and I think as Matt mentioned the key point, we were borderline having these hurdle races on. So who do you look for when the ground is extremely testing? Venetia Williams, who is finally turned a bit of a corner after a really poor start to the year. I think the last 9 runners, 4 of them have won now. So very much turned the tide in terms of her form. And Soul Solution is a horse who's proven on really heavy ground. He won a Foss last bumper under a penalty, I think given a horse now at 130 over a stone. Had an injury last season, so missed it all. And it's been a work in progress this season over hurdles, improving with each run. One last time out at Hereford and well back to do so. And again, when the yards runners were in really poor form, he was like the only shining light from that. So I think that paints that in a really good light. And he makes his handicap debut here off a mark 114. You look at what he achieved in bumpers. Obviously, the injury may have scuppered some of his ability. You look at his pedigree. I think he's a full brother to Easy as That, who the yard also trained, who also excelled on heavy ground. Conditions look ideal. I think that mark is going to prove quite lenient in time as well. It just seems to have it all. I think that price at 9.0 is now gone because the race has cut up slightly, but I still think he's around the 5.5 mark. I would be surprised if he wasn't favourite come the off.
All right, the 2 o'clock is a 2 mile handicap chase. It's just Donn here. I nearly joined you, Donn. This horse is still in my tracker from when he won at Newbury a long time ago and thought he was a really well-treated horse. I don't know, it hasn't happened so far this season, but back here, it's all there, isn't it? It's just, I don't know. Recent form is, basically, I'm glad you put him up, so I don't have to.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head, Tom. This is the first time he'll have soft ground since he won here last February. And he beat Gunsight Ridge that day. He beat him by 9 lengths, really impressive. He's actually £3 better off with Gunsight Ridge than he was that day. And back at Sandown, he had soft ground last time at Windsor when he fell, or he unseated, but I thought he was travelling really well that day. That was the race that Matata won, and look, Matata might have won it anyway. He ran out a good winner, but look, we don't know how he would have fared, obviously. But as long as he's none the worse for that, he comes on here. He's only run at Sandown twice. He finished 4th in the novices EBF final on Imperial Cup Day behind Crambo on his first run at Sandown, and then last time he won that handicap chase back in February. He won that race off a mark of 131. He went up to a mark of 142. He's back down to a mark of 135, so he's only £4 higher than he was then. As I said, he's better off with Gunsight Ridge. So he's just got plenty in his favour. Mortator is his main market rival, and earlier in the season, he was very, very good at Ascot. He looked like a horse who could continue to improve, but his last 2 runs, he just kind of below form a bit at Kempton over Christmas. And then last time back at Ascot, where I thought he'd go well, he just underperformed again. So look, he has won at Sandown. He won a novice handicap chase there in April last year, but that was off a mark of 127. He's 150 now, and I just think the ground is not a positive for him either. So I think Mortator is vulnerable, and I think Toulon he's got lots in his favour.
All right, that's the only one for that. We've got loads to the 307 and the 3 mile handicap hurdle. Dan and I are going in again on Dartmoor Pirate. He just bumped into one last time that had been off the track for about 10.5 years. Classic Hobbs and White in this instance. He's back at the scene of his best run. That was such a good run in the EBF final. Testing ground's going to make it more of a stamina test. I'm most excited by this bet on the day by far. He was my handicapper to follower this year, and I'm going to have a good go at 15.0, Dan.
And he was so well backed for Boxing Day as well. I think when we put him up, he was a comfortable double figure price. I think he's ended up going off 4.5. So the money was down for him. And as you say, he just bumped into Thomas Moore, their high class horse, Maydor. Obviously, we know it can be quite difficult there to peg them back. But that was a step in firmly back in the right direction after his chasing debut. As you mentioned, ran well in that EBF final, still completely unexposed as a free mile, despite clearly it being his trip. Lightweight, will handle the ground, and he's still a reasonable double-figure price. Yeah, I'd be pretty strong on him. I think that's really generous pricing.
Matt.
Yeah, Dan's talked about the bottomless ground likely on the hurdles track, and we've got a horse with course and distance form on heavy ground last time when winning by 18 lengths in the Potemps qualifier on Tingle Creek Day at Henry II. The 18 length second up for paroles, won his only start since, the same mark in similarly testing conditions at Foss Lass. 29 lengths third Super Survivors won both starts since, that not as if Henry II was running away from out of form horses who didn't handle the ground. He's up £8 to 133 here. But in a different era of handicapping, he'd been double digits higher for that. You couldn't ask for a better profile for a horse in a race like this. I think he'll take all the beating if he's in the same sort of form. There's the obvious concern that the Nichols horses have been in their January lull, but I should think this is his Gold Cup. So I imagine he'll be one of the few runners this month where Paul has primed his horse. Yeah, the two mares, Jubilee Alpha and Just a Rose, were fairly straight for their dawn run preps. Monmoral and Stage Star ran well last weekend. So I'm not too worried about yard form. I think he will be backed into clear favouritism. So I'll be tempted to take about the 5.0 now.
Donn.
Yeah, I just think Deep Cave is a well-handicapped horse, Tom. I think there's a big race in him. It was a good horse for Henry de Bromhead. He won when he won his maiden hurdle at the Leopardstown Christmas Festival in 22, I think. He beat Lotto Joy on firm footings. He's now with Christian Williams, and his last couple of runs, the two runs at Cheltenham at the November meeting and on New Year's Day, he was held up on pace. He was really forward the last day at Windsor, and he ran well to finish fourth behind Titan Discovery. He's only £1 higher now than he was then. He's up 130. It's £5 lower than his peak. And the Christian Williams horses, they're just coming into form now. This is his time of year, kind of February, March into the spring. He's had 2 winners from his last 5 runs, including Planned Paradise, with priced at Windsor again. I think Deep Cave, I think there's a handicap in him all right off this mark, and yeah, it could be Saturday.
Apologies, I'm going to do a bit of talking now because I'm the only one with a bet in the 342 3-mile handicap Chase Gustavian. The 2 pace angles are trained by Anthony Honeyball. There's another one down the bottom, I think, in Escaria 10. The main angle here was the getting into a rhythm over fences at Sandown. I think that'll suit Gustavian, who I thought that Fortunate Man form was good from last time at Aintree. We know the horse wants cut in the ground and wants a bit of a stamina test as well. So that's exactly what he gets here. And I would rather be backing him than Indoor for David Maxwell, who looked good last time on a sound surface, but this horse will take it that on worse ground. The horse will take a bit of shoving, and I'd rather have Gustavian on side. So that horse at 6.0. And then I think I'm the only one with Musselburgh bets, but by all means, come in anyone if I've missed anything. Affadil in the race he won last year, the Scottish County 5.0. Freddie Gingell back on board. Last time, basically, the horse is, I can imagine, being campaigned at this. Like he's lower than last year and a bigger price than last year at 5.0. He was really well supported last year. He ran some good races off a mark as well. So we know he's well treated. Maybe he's gone. I don't know, but I sort of doubt it. And I know it's a big field, but 5.0, you get a win place price. Happy days. I think he's a really good bet at 5.0 Affadil. And the other one is Fidelia Vallis at 17.0. He's a course and distance winner from the old last year on January the 1st. It's 17.0 for a yard that they've had a recent winner. Now, their horses have not been right, I think, since middle of November. Somebody suggested at the November meeting at Cheltenham, and I think that they had loads of disappointments that weekend. Basically, it's been a tough season for them, but they're back in amongst the winners. This horse is at the scene of his last success, and they've changed the headgear as well. But I think ultimately 17.0. I think Harry Derham's horses just might be worth keeping an eye on going forward, because he's not a bad trainer, but he just had a rough patch, and a recent winner hopefully will put that to bed. Right, DRF Sunday. The 2 mile 5 novice chase, first of all. What have we put? I put Ballyburn, that's obvious, but it's very much price dependent. But back over this trip, Kempton did not suit last time. I think he'll just win, but it all depends what price he goes. But and I think he'll probably win the 3 mile at Cheltenham. There you go. But looking at the early price, I think there's been a market overreaction to the Kempton performance. Matt, have you got a trend here?
Yeah, because we don't have decks for this yet. I've put the form up of the 3 Grade 1s thus far. Drinmore winners 4 from 13, tiny profit. Forheen winners this century 2 from 10, 48% loss. The best trial, though it's at 3 miles, been the Fort Leany at Leopardstown at Christmas. 4 from 11 winners this century, 29% profit. And I want to take on Ballyburn here just at the prices. It's 1.67, having been well beaten last time. The obvious one would be Imperi Pass, Stacks of Class, been 3 1/4 lengths, second estate man over 2 miles last season, earning a racing post rating of 163. I'm concerned about him stamina. For him, win over fences, victories at the Aintree and Select Hurdles last spring were in steadily run races. At Aintree, he scrambled home looking to be running on fumes against horses a fair bit inferior to State Man. So I'm open-minded whether he's best suited by 2 or 2.5. I suspect he's effective at both, but 2 miles, 5 furlongs, 107 yards may stretch his stamina. And that may get stretched if Gordon declares one or both of his here. I've been a fan of Better Days Ahead, but I didn't like the way he lugged in behind Croke Park at Christmas, being in front when it didn't matter soon after the line. He looked very straightforward before then, so maybe it was just a one-off. I just want to see him put it all in before backing him. If he does run well here, I could see myself backing him for the Broadway. But at the moment, I'm going to go with the most unloved dual Grade 1 winning novice chaser in recent memory, Croke Park. He had the speed to win a crawl sprint in the Drinmore over 2.5 from Hartwood, went on to get within 15 lengths of Gallopin de Champ in the Savills next time, had enough stamina to win a decently run 3 mile Fort Leany, just holding on from Better Days Ahead. So for all he's been banched as a 3 miler, maybe this extended 2 mile 5 suits him really well. And he doesn't radiate star quality, but he keeps winning these Grade 1s. And if there is a star in here, if Ballyburn is as good over fences as he was over hurdles, then he's going to be too good for him. But at 17.0, now I wouldn't play anti-post. I'd wait and see what Gordon declares, if anything. But if he's a double figure price for the declarations, then I'd be prepared to take that in both the win and the place market.
I'm going to bring you in, Don, on the next, if I can. I don't know if you put note Better Days Ahead. Obviously, Matt's mentioned that. The 140 is the 2 mile novice hurdle. Bit of a team steaming Kopek de Board, Don.
Yeah, look, the way he jumped the last day, you talk about ability to jump all throughout, but he did remarkably well to win, given he like from what we could see, he didn't jump a flight the last day. He won the George Myrna bumper on his racecourse debut back in March at Fairyhouse. That's always a good bumper. He won it really impressively as well. And then, I just thought he did so well to win the last day, given how he jumped. He seemed to want to go in tight to his flights. He jumped to his left. He beat Cowabunga, who came out at Fairyhouse there on Saturday, and beat William Money and Cocktail Devon. That's really solid form. He's a half brother to Utopia de Board, who won a Grade 1 race over 2 miles at 6 in France and over 3 miles over hurdles. So there's plenty of stamina there, but he's got pace as well. His time the last day was around about the same, 0.02 seconds slower than Work Ahead. He was carrying 5 pounds less, but still it was a big performance given how he jumped. And look, this is a race that can be a pointer towards the 2.5 mile race, the Turners, as well as the Supreme Novices Hurdle. But we don't know what's going to run yet. If K. Doty, his stable companion, is going to run, because he was good the last day at Leopardstown too. But I just think Kopek de Board, as Patrick Mullen said afterwards, he must have some engine if he's able to win, given he jumped like that. And yeah, if he can jump a wee bit better, then I think he's the one they'll have to beat.
Dan?
Yeah, not too much to add. I think the market is kind of swinging towards Kopek de Board now, having been kind of co-favourite with K. Doty earlier, but obviously that form for Kopek de Board is working out better. For all that Cocktail Devon, I think you can probably forgive his below par run. Obviously, Henry de Bromhead's form is a bit of a concern. I'd say if he brushes up his jumping, I think he will take a lot of beating here, and I think he'll be probably the Turner's horse for the yard. Obviously, guessing where those novice hurdlers are going to end up is difficult, to say the least, but with Salvatore Mundi looking the stable number 1 for the Supreme, it wouldn't surprise me if he follows in the footsteps of Sir Gerhard and obviously Ballyburn last year and going up in trip. The only other betting angle of the race I want to mention is Blue Devassi. He's a horse I have a lot of time for. I was half hoping he'd go to Nathaniel Lacey because they've entered him in the Albert Bartlett included, and they've always said he would stay further. But he ran really fine behind Romeo Coolio. He's done very little wrong over hurdles. And what I can't quite figure out is why he's a few points bigger in the anti-post betting than Redemption Day. Now, obviously, I completely respect the front two, and I think that Blue Devassi doesn't have the star quality of those two. But I think if you can get an odds against price on Blue Devassi without the front two in the betting, bearing in mind he does pretty much everything in right for his races and he sets a fair benchmark, I think that would be a really tempting proposition, because I look down the list and you see the likes of Carafon and Carnaque. They're probably just having their fifth run with a view to handicaps. I think Blue Devassi without the front two, if that's odds against, would make a really strong betting proposition.
Matt, and your trend.
Yeah, trendy. Willie's won 11 of the last 12 renewals, 2 of the last 5 with horses off one run. The first 20 winners this century had at least 2 hurdle runs. So with Willie's dominance and his training methods having changed, I think you need to be prepared to be looking for the star horse who's just had the maiden hurdle in this sort of race now. Whereas before you were looking at the Royal Bond and the future champions and races like that. I'd echo what the lad said at Kopek. De Board, hopefully Paul Townend will be taking over and he'll be much more professional here. He has been back now, as you say. It was earlier in the week, maybe in the time to get at him. But I'm struggling to see stars in Willie's novice hurdlers at the moment. That may look a very silly thing to say in a few days' time. But the one I think who could turn into a proper Supreme or Bearing Bingham horse is Kopek de Board. I think he'll probably win this.
All right, moving on to the Dublin Chase. I like that Matt and Dan agree with Quilixios. Dan, 17.0.
Yeah, after just saying about the Henry de Bromhead form, what do I do immediately the race after? Henry de Bromhead horse. So I'm a walking contradiction as usual. I just struggle to have much faith in Gaelic Warrior at a really short price, especially with the memories of last year kind of echoing my head, where obviously he pretty much threw the race away before he even stepped out onto the track. I don't think he's ever going to be a horse to have maximum faith in at a short price. If he improves from his run over Christmas, he should take the beating here and is the only horse realistically who has the potential to challenge John Bond in the Champion Chase. But I can't quite figure out why Quilixios is around the 17.0 mark and Marine Nationale, El Fabiolo and Solness are all significantly shorter. Obviously, you go back to Nace, he comprehensively beat Marine Nationale. I mean, obviously, you can probably mark Marine up. That was his first run back after a few issues, but he did that in the style of a horse who's still progressing, then went to Sandown behind John Bond. He ran perfectly fine. Like, he just bumped into John Bond around Sandown, and not many are capable of really challenging him there. Still finished second, well ahead of Solness. Obviously, the yard form is a concern, but I still think he's got potential to improve. And we know Henry de Bromhead is a master of getting these horses for as long as they've been around a while, still getting continuous improvement out of them over fences. His forward-going run style as well will suit. So when he's around the 17.0 mark and the 3 others shorter than him, I think all have other things to prove. I just thought he was overpriced and worth a bit of a win and place play.
And Matt, you agree?
I absolutely agree with that for the same reasons Dan said. There seems to be a perception that Quilixios likes soft ground and may want further. And I don't think either are true. Looked to love the good ground when beating Marine Nationale at Nace. Whilst John Bond's a much more formidable opponent, he never looked happy on the very soft ground in the Tingle Creek. He's got 6 half siblings who made the track. They've all run exclusively on the flat. And those that run on the turf have shown their best form on goodish ground, typically at 10 to 12 furlongs. So I think this trip and yielding ground will suit him really well. So ideally, you wait and see how the de Bromhead horses are running on Saturday. Perhaps the price, the 17.0, as Dan said, that just looks the wrong price. Maybe that means someone knows he isn't going to run. So I wouldn't be backing him anti-post. But if he is a double-figure price on the day, then I will be backing him.
And Donn.
Yeah, I haven't lost faith in Marine Nationale yet, Tom. He's only had 4 runs over fences. He was unbeaten as a novice hurdler. He won the Royal Bond and the Supreme Novices Hurdle. When he won his beginner's chase, it looked like he was going to take a very high rank among the top 2-mile chasers. And then he got beaten at this meeting last year in the Irish Arkle. As the lads were saying, Quilixios beat him at Nace on his first run this season, but that was his first run back, and he needed to improve from that. And he did the last day. I thought his run the last day was a wee bit better than people are giving him credit for. He got the better of Gaelic Warrior on the run around the home turn. He just gave best to him on the run-in then behind Solness, and of course Solness beat the 2 of them. So whether he can go and do that again, I don't know, maybe there was something about the fog last time, but it was a super ride by JJ Slevin, and Solness obviously had absolute hard race fitness on his side going into the race, whereas Gaelic Warrior was making his seasonal debut. Marine Nationale was having his first run, and I think he can come forward from that. The ground should be ideal for him. He was around the inside the last day as well for much of the race. He only came towards the near side on the home turn, and he probably wasn't on the best of the ground, given that Solness went wide the whole way and he won impressively. So I just think Marine Nationale, there could be more to come from him. He's still a likely raced horse. He's only had 3 runs over hurdles and 4 runs over fences, so I just give him another chance.
All right, and then the one I'm really looking forward to, and if you have missed any of Matt's trends, they have been scrolling across the bottom of your screen, but they're also going to be in the document as well, insights.matchbook.com. Matt, come in with your Irish champion hurdle one if you can, and then explain why you're not backing Lossiemouth.
So this is the most predictable Grade 1 in the calendar. 20 of the 25 favourites this century have won. The only one of the last 15 renewals not to go the favourite. 2018 when Fahim went off a flaky 1.9 favourite, having been pulled up on his previous start. Obviously a match. It's been priced up as if Lossiemouth is about 1.62 is the stable number 1, with Stateman 2.75 as the second string. So Paul's going to choose Lossiemouth. I'm not at all convinced that's going to be the case. Willie said throughout he thinks Stateman's is number 1. On Racing Post ratings, he ran to a £1 higher in this season's Morgiana than when winning the race the previous 2 years, all on seasonal debut. Came to beat a race fit Brighter Days Ahead, just blew up. And that form, RPR 166, only £2 below the 168 he's got for winning this the last 2 seasons. So it's not as if he's been out of form this season. He's just run terribly once at Christmas. Too bad to be true. Never went a yard at a time when plenty of Willies were under the weather. So I think you just put a line through that. By contrast, Lossiemouth's best form earned her an RPR of 156 in a cruel sprint mare's hurdle over 2.5. She's been running in steadily and often slowly run races until she lined up in the Christmas hurdle. Seemed to get taken off her feet, ears back, never happy passing the stands the first time. But that was her best RPR at around the minimum trip, 152. So even with the £7 mares allowance, she's got to improve a lot to get to even Stateman's Morgiana defeat earlier this season. Now, Stateman's got to come out and prove he's over whatever was ailing him at Christmas. But assuming he's in good health, and the vibes are that he is, I think their prices should be reversed. So I'm very keen to get stuck into the 2.75 anti-post because he's going to go off that sort of price, assuming Paul does choose Lossiemouth. Whereas if Paul chooses him, then the prices are going to change a lot. I think he's a cracking bet.
All right, Dan, to counter that.
Well, that was such an eloquent argument as well. I hate going against Matt when he's in that kind of bullish form because that was almost convincing. I just can't shake how poor he was at Christmas, and I completely understand it's a one-off. And for a horse of such admirable consistency, it was very concerning to see such a poor run and never really threatened to get involved. And he does have to kind of shrug that off now. Obviously, he's had a lot of racing. There could be just a chance that he is starting to decline, but you say he was perfectly fine on his reappearance. I just think if there's any horse that's going to get close in the champion hurdle, it's probably going to have to be Lossiemouth, and the jockey bookings will be the informative thing. And I say if Paul does choose Stateman, to be honest, that'll just make me more interested in Lossiemouth. The Kempton run, a bit like Ballyburn, she never really looked comfortable, but still ran on really well at the finish. I think that was a sign of a really quality and tough mare. I think Leopardstown arguably will definitely suit her more. The softer ground will definitely be in her favour. The pace angles in this race may come from Daddy Longlegs, Fielder Derry may go forward. I think that'll then set it up for the two in behind of Stateman and Lossiemouth to have a go. I just think Lossiemouth still has untapped potential as a top-class horse, and realistically, until that Kempton run, she'd done very little wrong, albeit some of her races were slowly run. So I still think she's the one on the upward curve. I quite like Stateman to bounce back because he's been such a consistent horse, but I think this might be the time where Lossiemouth takes over as the stable's number 1 2-miler.
And Donn.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add, Tom. Like Lossiemouth, I thought she did well to get as close to Constitution Hill the last day in the Christmas hurdle, given that she didn't do anything right. She didn't travel with her usual verve. Paul Tannen was kind of squeezing her along from early. She didn't jump well at all. And maybe, as Matt was saying, that was because it was a bit of a culture shock, having to run in a fast-paced, well-run 2-mile hurdle on kind of goodish ground. She should have learned from that, you would have thought. Certainly Willie just seemed to think that just hopefully she'll come on from that and to be going at a faster pace. Her jumping will be more fluent. She's a top-class mare. And as Dan was saying, like Stateman, he's just, that run the last day, it just wasn't his running. Winterfall got the better of him for the runner-up spot. So he has to bounce back from that. And like that said, I wouldn't be surprised if Paul does choose to ride Stateman. He's going back to Albion Photo. He's got a big association with Mary Donnelly. So that wouldn't be surprising. And if that happens, then they'll obviously converge in the betting. But I think Lossiemouth, in receipt of the £7 mare's allowance, the younger horse, I think she's the right favourite.
Well, on that line, our producer says politics will mean Paul will ride State Man. So interesting. We will find out tomorrow. Right, Matchbook Zero long shot time. Reminder that goes live an hour before each race. It's the best place for a win-only bet because you're most likely to be getting best odds with zero margin, zero commission. Unsurprisingly, mine is Dartmoor Pirate. Matt, who is yours?
Sunny Bill at 15.0 in the 150 at Leopardstown on Saturday, the juvenile hurdle.
Donn.
Yeah, Mozzie's sister in the very first contest of the weekend at Leopardstown.
And Dan. Big price.
I'll go for Rushmount 51.0, the 3 mile handicap, the 225 on the Saturday.
Just you, Matt, with a lay. I think we're not surprised who it is in the 115 at Leopardstown on Saturday.
Yeah, Final Demand could be anything, but this is a tough ask, and 2.75 definitely want to take him on.
Right, my best bet is Dartmoor Pirate in that race at Sand. All in the Dartmoor Pirate. Won't win. Matt, your best bet?
State Man at 2.75 in the Irish Champion Hurdle. Take the anti-post prices now.
Donn.
Midnight it is. I think he's a well-handicapped horse. Can be marked up from his run the last day at Fairyhouse in the 4:05 at Leopardstown, the 2 mile 1 furlong handicap chase.
And Dan overall?
Solve Solution in the 125 at Sandown in the grueling conditions, which he will love.
I really enjoyed that. And I'm going to enjoy the Dublin Racing Festival as well. 2 brilliant days racing. Sandown's pretty good as well. We threw in a few from Musselburgh also. Loads of bets going up, loads of trends as well. Head to insights.matchbook.com for a recap of all those bets and reasons. Donn, Dan, Matt, thank you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.